Hi, and welcome back to Football Made Simple. And today's video will be a one-stop required for a tactical preview before the final on the 1st of June. By now everybody knows the incredible story of how these two teams got to the final, with Klopp and Liverpool's epic comeback against Valverde's Barcelona, and Pochettino's Spurs performing several last-gasp miracles culminating in a comeback against Ajax. If you want a deeper look, we have a tactical review for all those matches, as well as profiles on Klopp and Pochettino on the channel and linked in the cards right now. So in this video we're going to look at the following: a brief head-to-head record of the two managers, a look back at their most recent league meeting and what tactics were used, how both teams have lined up and the tactics used recently, as well as key players for the final and how the teams will look to hurt each other tactically. Just before that, if you're new here, I'd appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button below the video and like the video as it helps to support the channel. Now without further ado, let's get into the good stuff. Mauricio Pochettino and Jurgen Klopp have met 9 times in their managerial careers, all in the Premier League aside from one match in the 4th round of the Cup. The record here makes for good reading for Liverpool fans, but not for Spurs. Klopp has been victorious 4 times, there have been 4 draws, and the only time Poch has come out on top was a 4-1 home mauling of Liverpool during the 17-18 season. In the last 3 meetings, which will indicate their recent head-to-head form, Klopp has won twice, and the other result being a draw. The last 2 results may be unfair on Spurs, as the recent 2-1 was lost due to a last-minute blunder by Lloris and Alderweireld, with the XG showing that a draw would have been a deserved result. The match in September ended 2-1, but both of Liverpool's goals could be put down to poor keeping, although their XG did show that Liverpool deserved to win. This gives us a general idea, but let's dig deeper by having an in-depth look at their recent match and the in-game tactics they used. In that match, Liverpool lined up in their usual 4-3-3, with Trent and Robertson flanking Matip and Van Dijk. Henderson was holding at the time, with Milner and Wijnaldum in the more mobile roles, with their usual front 3 up top. In response, Tottenham were playing a back 5, where Rose and Trippier flanked Vertonghen, Sanchez and Alderweireld. Sissoko was at the base of midfield, whilst both Eriksen and Ali could drift forwards and backwards as needed. Kane and Lucas Moura led the attack. Now let's look at how the two teams interacted. We'll start by what happened when Liverpool had the ball. Alisson is relatively comfortable with the ball at his feet, so they'll try to play out from the back when possible. However, we can see in the same instance, Spurs was defending in a 5-3-2, whether they were deep or high. So the front 2 would often pick up the centre-backs, but Robertson and Alexander-Arnold would push higher and wider. Spurs wanted to keep their midfield narrow because the Liverpool front 3 would come narrow in this instance. This meant that Alexander-Arnold and Robertson were always free to relieve the pressure and progress up the pitch. Perhaps if Spurs had played a 5-4-1, they would have been able to stop this more efficiently. Going forward from this, Klopp used a very interesting tactic. Liverpool would often overload one side of the pitch with forwards and midfield players, but instead of Milner providing support in the central area, he would occupy the left back position, which would allow Robertson to go up and join Mane. A quick switch would then mean that Mane and Robertson had a 2 versus 1 against Trippier. Mane would make a run into the channel to draw Trippier, giving Robertson the time to cross the ball into the box. And that's exactly how Liverpool scored, with the ball being worked into 2 versus 1 position, allowing Robertson to cross to the back post run. Again, could a 5-4-1 have prevented this with the extra wide player preventing the 2 versus 1? Liverpool's secondary attacking tactic was to drop Firmino deep, which would draw a centre-back. This would then allow Mane and Salah to make the run in behind the high line or into the space vacated and try get a shot on goal. How about Pochettino and Spurs? What do they do in an offensive state? When trying to build up from the back, as the centre-backs were often pressed man for man by the forwards, it meant that Danny Rose and Trippier were the out wide to progress the ball forward. But realistically, much of Spurs' attacking play was dictated by how Liverpool defended. The Reds as always used a high press. If Spurs did try to progress through the midfield, the double pivot would quickly be pressured backwards. This meant that the majority of Spurs' attack was long balls up to Kane, where Moura and Ali would try run beyond for the flick on. These runners would often try to take advantage of the space in behind Alexander-Arnold and Robertson, who would be up high trying to press Trippier and Rose. Once they got into these wide areas, crosses from the fullbacks were a major tactic. Spurs were always keen to get many numbers into the box when crossing in order to overload Van Dijk and Matip, as the centre-backs would easily win most 1-versus-1s. This is how their goal came about. Here, as you can see, Moura takes advantage of the space behind Trent, and Spurs get numbers into the box in order to get into good positions. The cross comes in and Moura can finish. But if Spurs score first, we can see what happens when Liverpool have to push forward, as they had to during this match, as they needed to win to keep up in the title race. Liverpool would leave gaps behind Alexander-Arnold and Robertson, who had gone high, allowing Kane, Son, Moura and Ali to get into 3-versus-2 situations, which led to many chances towards the end of the game. Outside of this match, both clubs have had injuries to their centre forwards, and this has affected their tactics and may give us a hint of how the final will play out. With Firmino out, Liverpool have used Sturridge and Origi in this role, or Shaqiri playing, allowing Mane and Salah to be more central, but Firmino is expected to be fit. For Spurs, the big doubt is whether Kane will play, and if he does, how fit he'll be. If he's not, Spurs have often opted to play a fluid formation, which for argument's sake will call a 4-4-2 diamond. Moura and Son have often been selected if Llorente is left on the bench. At the same time, Ali is highly versatile, running beyond the forwards when needed and dropping into shape when defending. The big question is how Poch will line up in defence, a back 4 or a back 5. If they use a back 4, the Liverpool front 3 can play wide in order to stretch them, or Firmino can drop deep to draw a centre-back, allowing Mane and Salah into the gap. Whereas if they use a back 5, the front 3 will remain central to 1-versus-1 each of the centre-backs and make runs into crosses from out wide. At the same time, they'll be pressing Spurs high to try and force them long, which plays into Matip and Van Dijk's game plan. Assuming Kane is fit, Spurs could hurt Liverpool using a 4-2-3-1, with Son and Moura out wide, especially on the transition as Alexander-Arnold and Robertson push high up. Son and Moura could use their pace into the gaps. Spurs could hit them directly to avoid the press, or look for Kane to play it into the wingers, allowing them to run from out to in. For Liverpool, I think one of the key players will be Robertson and his crossing ability into the forwards. At the same time, he has to be alert enough to keep track of Moura, trying to run into the space behind him. For Spurs, if I was to pick one key player, it has to be Christian Eriksen. He'll be highly involved in the build-up from deep. With Liverpool pressing high, he's the most press-resistant of Spurs' midfield compared to Sissoko and Wanyama, so he'll be key in stopping Spurs from being forced to go long consistently. And finally, let's move on to the prediction. Let's start off with the predicted lineups. I think Pochettino will opt to line up with a back 4, with Trippier at right back, Rose at left back, Alderweireld and Jan Vertonghen at centre back, with a double pivot of Wanyama and Sissoko. This means the 3 in behind the forward will be Son, Ali and Eriksen, and the news seems to indicate that Kane will be fit. However, if Moura starts, that could mean Eriksen dropping into the pivot role and Moura coming in on the wing. For Liverpool, on the other hand, Alisson will start in goal, with Alexander-Arnold, Van Dijk, Matip and Robertson making up the back 4. I think Fabinho will start in the holding role, with Henderson and Wijnaldum either side. It appears as though Firmino will be fit, so the front 3 will be Salah, Mane and Firmino. Football is hard to predict, but if I was to make one, I'll say Liverpool would come out on top in a tight match, either 2 or 3-1. However, if Spurs score first, things could get interested. Join us for the post-match review after the final on June the 1st. Do you agree with my prediction? Do you agree with my preview? Leave a comment below and we can interact. If you have any video suggestions, tweet them to @FootballMadeSim, or you can leave them in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you press the subscribe button right below and like the video as well. Take a look at our previous 2 videos, looking at how Pochettino and Jurgen Klopp have transformed their respective clubs. And if you have a bit of time, check out the other videos on our channel. We have in-game tactical reviews, as well as so much more, such as videos on Ajax and how Lionel Messi has evolved tactically. That's all for today, and remember, keep it simple.